Alright, so today what we're going to do is we're going to add the brick. So we're going to understand randomizing from a list by creating the brick object. Because the brick object is going to be a single object, but it's going to be multicolors. And what we're going to do is basically we're going to pick, when we create the brick, we're going to pick the color of the brick from the list of colors. So our new learning is going to be randomizing, but randomizing using a list of options rather than just random numbers. Yesterday we did do random numbers, and in the maze game we also did random numbers. And we have to randomize before we do random numbers, but random numbers are one way to randomize. Another way to randomize is to randomly select from a list of options. And so here we go. We're going to do that. So the brick, today we're going to create the sprite, create the object, and then we're going to change the color when it gets created. Okay, so when we create the brick, or create the sprite brick, the brick sprite, something like that, we are actually just going to make it a basic white color because we're going to put color onto it when we do the create event. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead, I'm going to switch the projector over to show my screen so that we can see. And here's what we have so far. What you should have so far is we have a bat that moves. Bat moves left and right, and the ball starts when I press spacebar. Now another small problem is that, and we'll fix this later, but when I press the spacebar, if I were to press the spacebar multiple times, I can actually make the ball change direction, which is problematic, but we'll fix that. But right now, this is what we have. We have a moving bat and a moving ball. Okay. The way we did that, going back to yesterday, I'll go back to the bat first. The bat we did into two different events that were mirror image events. So we had a key down left and a key down right. Key down left was we were going to move left as long as we have space to move left. That's kind of the general idea. So like we did with Mr. Smiley, where we said, rather than say move left and then when you hit a wall stop, it was let's check and see if there's a wall in our way, and then if there's not a wall we can move. With this, we're focusing on the edges of the screen. So basically we're saying if we're not at the left edge of the screen, let us move left. And we did the same thing for the right. If we're not at the right edge of the screen, move right. And the challenge of that was we had to check and see where the left side of the bat is in relation to the left side of the screen. And what we call that is the bounding box. So the bounding box left variable is an x coordinate for the left-hand side of the bat. And I used a variable, I called it left, and it was just a temporary variable to store that value so we could use it in the if statement. Because we were going to check and see if that variable, the left-hand side of the bat, is greater than 0, which is the left-hand side of the window. If that's true, we're going to move. What was that? The value for the assigned variable is -7, right? So we figure out where the left-hand side of the bat is. That's what the getInstance variable is all about. The bounding box left. Then we use that variable to determine is the left side of the bat away from the left side of the screen. Because if it is, let's go ahead and move x to the left, which is what adding -7 to x will do. Right? We clicked relative to add -7 to x because that will move left. Now we noticed that because we were using the -7 value, that moving left caused us, when we hit the left side of the screen, we actually moved off a little bit, which is okay. If we really wanted to, I guess we could add code in that would ensure that the bounding box would, or that the bat would stay fully on the screen. I'm not too concerned with that. It's just a little bit of the bat that's off the screen. Now for the right-hand side, it was the same thing. We checked, we get the bounding box right, which is also an x variable, or an x coordinate, but it's the x coordinate of the right side of the bat. And I stored it in a variable called right. And I made it a temporary variable because I was just using it to check and see, is there space to move to the right? So that's what this means. If the right variable is less than the room width, and I use room width because I want to be sure that if we decide for some reason to change the size of the room, that this will work no matter what size room we change to. Okay? So when I'm moving right, I want to check and see if my right bounding box is less than the room width. Because if it's less than room width, there's space for me to move to the right. That means move to the right. So we use the assign variable. We assign x, the 7, but we clicked relative to add 7 to x. And that moves to the right. So they're mirror image of one another. And this kept the bat basically on the screen, both left and right. Again, we had a little bit on each side that went off the screen, and that's because we used 7 as our movement value and not a nice movement value that would work for the screen. 8 probably would have kept the whole bat on. It's not that big a deal. I just like 7. Okay, so that was the code for the bat. The ball, on the other hand, we just wanted to start moving when we pressed the space bar. And the difference here was I didn't want to be able to press and hold the space bar and make it move. I wanted to just press it once, which changed which event we used. So rather than using the key down event, which is press and hold, we use the key press event, which is when the key is pressed once. So when the key is pressed once, that's all I care about. If it's held down, it doesn't matter. Okay? So that's the event I used. So it was key press space, not key down space. So key press space, when I press the space bar once, as soon as it hits the bottom of its, as soon as I press it all the way down, it registers the key press, it triggers this code. Okay? So it would be nice if we could just say, move in a random direction. And actually there is a block that does that. I'll show you. It is this one right here. The problem with that is, and I don't know that I'll put it in here, but I'll drag it over so you can see it. Well, here, I'll drag it in so you can see it. So when it says set direction random, the issue with that is, for me anyway, is that it only gives me these 8 possibilities. So I could click and select any of these, but it's only going to select from those 3. So it's either going to go 45, 45, or 90. So I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make it more interesting, so I didn't include that. So I'm going to get rid of that. Don't show this message again. Okay. Instead, I said, okay, I want to randomly pick a value between 45 and 135. Right? I want anywhere in between those two. Well, so the process is I've got to pick the random number. I've got to store the random number. And then I've got to set the direction, and then I've got to set the speed. Because all of those things are what happens to make the ball move in a certain direction. Get a random number, store the random number, use the random number to set the direction of the ball, and then set the speed to that in that direction. So that's what I did. Randomize comes first. DIR. For direction. I couldn't use the word direction because direction is a built-in variable. So I used dir instead to store the direction value that I'm going to use. So randomize sets a new seed value for the random number generator so that every time I run it, every time I run the program, it will start with a different value. Okay? The get random number actually is the one that generates a random number between 45 and 135. The target is a variable that I'm going to create that is going to hold this value long enough for me to set the direction to that value. So in this case, I used dir because, again, direction is a built-in variable of an object. You can't use that name. So instead, I used dir as a name, and I clicked temp because I only want to use it long enough to set the direction and then start moving the ball. So that's what I did. I set the direction variable using dir, and then I set the speed, and I made sure that my direction, the type of speed was direction. Because remember, we can do a horizontal and vertical speed, or we can just start moving in that direction. So this is what turned or made the ball start moving in a random direction. Get a random number, store the random number, use the random number to set the ball's direction, start it moving with set speed. Okay? And I'm using a speed of 3 right now. Okay? Yeah. Because it's right, the whole reason for me storing it is because I was going to use it in the direction variable. Minimum and maximum is 45 and 135. Yeah. Basically, I'm looking at a pie slice like this, and I'm saying pick any value in between those, and any value in between those will work. It'll go off, and that way the ball's not going weirdly sideways, right? If we keep it to this at least to start with, that makes for a more interesting start. Once the ball gets going though and it gets bouncing, it can bounce at any angle it wants to. I just use lowercase. Generally speaking, I use lowercase unless I'm naming things using camel case. So I just use lowercase if it's not multiple words. It's all lowercase. Sometimes I'll also use. You can also use, if you're doing multiple words, you can also use underscores to separate the words. Okay, so we've got the ball, we've got the bat. Next we're going to do the brick. So we have to create a sprite, create an object, then we will, in the create event of that object, we're going to change the color to a random color. Okay? So here we go. Ready to create? Let's create the brick. The brick is going to be simply a rectangle, 32 by 16. It's going to be a black outline with a white interior. Okay? Because what we're going to do is in the create event, we're going to add the code to choose a new color for it. Okay? And so the thing is, when you choose a color, it doesn't just flat up change the color. It does this melding of colors, right? It like mixes the colors essentially. So whatever the original color was, it tries to mix it in with whatever color we choose, which is why I'm using white, because white will mix with any color and become that color. So here we go. Add a sprite. SPR brick. If I can type. SPR brick. Okay. Then we're going to change the size. I'm going to resize the canvas. I said 32 wide by 16 tall. And the reason for that is that, one, I've already set that up as my grid. So that'll make it easy to set in the grid. And we're kind of keeping things a standard size, right? The ball is 16 by 16. It's going to be the height of the brick. The bat is 64 by 16, so it's going to be as thick as a brick. So the bricks are just going to be half the size of the bat, which makes sense. So I'm going to go in and edit the image. And as I said, all I'm going to do is make a rectangle. So I'm going to click my rectangle tool, outline. And then I'm going to click black. And then I'm going to make a black rectangle. And then I'm going to use my fill tool. And I'm going to click my white. And I'm going to fill the inside with white. Okay? And basically we're creating a palette that can be changed to any color we want. That's why we're using white and black. Because black won't mix with any color. White will take on whatever color you assign it. So when you combine those two things, it'll make it so that the outline will remain black, while the inside will turn whatever color we want. Because, again, the idea, you can think of it like a filter. So rather than the program like going in and just like changing the color, it's like it has the sprite and then it takes and it puts a filter over the top of it. It says, oh, we're going to filter this color. Well, when you put a filter over white, it's going to change to that color. So that's what we're going to do. Now, white is going to be one of our colors, but that's okay. We'll just keep it there. So, everybody got this? Can we go ahead and, I'm going to go ahead and close it. Okay. So we're ready to go ahead and create the object and then start working on the create event. Okay. So, click to close that. Add a new object. OBJ brick. Okay. Change the sprite to the SPR brick. And now we're ready to actually add code. We're going to add the create event. So just click add event and click create. (32 by 16). Okay. So with the brick, we're going to use a different random process. So I'm going to scroll all the way down to where I see random. So there are two options for random. There's a random number, just getting a random number, and then there's choosing from a list. And that's what we're going to use. However, if we don't use randomize, every time our game starts, it's going to start with the same exact quote-unquote random pattern of bricks. Which sounds funny to say, but that's the truth. If we don't randomize before, our program is going to use the same seed value for its random number generator, and it's going to choose the same layout of bricks every time. So I'm going to first grab a randomize and add it. Okay, because randomize changes the seed value so that each time that I run it, it gets a new seed value. And then I'm going to click and drag over a choose. Okay. Now choose allows me to fill in a list of values that I can use to do whatever. In this case, we're going to use it for colors. Okay. Now, to be clear, the colors that we're going to use are, we're going to use 8 different colors. The thing is, we're not going to, we can't just simply put the color name. No, it's just created. It's at the very top. It's its own event. So our color names are all going to start with C and underscore. And you'll see the colors pop up, right? So we're going to pick 8 colors. Now, I'm going to pick 8 colors. If you want to pick different colors, feel free. I'm going to pick 8 colors that I like. Basically, I'm going to pick I'm going to pick all of the primary colors of light, red, green, blue. I'm going to pick all the combinations of 2 of the primary colors, which is pink, which is usually called magenta, cyan, and yellow. I'm going to pick a white, and then I'm also going to pick an orange. So, but unfortunately, just like anything else, those colors, the colors that I'm looking for, aren't using the same name as the colors that I want. So if I want a cyan, you can see cyan is not on the list. But I'm going to do aqua instead. Okay? And then I'm going to hit the plus to add another option. And in fact, you know what? I'm just going to hit all the pluses I need. I need 7. Oh, I need now 6 more. So I'm going to hit pluses until I have 8. So there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Because I know I want 8 options. So I'm just going to go ahead and add all my options now. And then I'll fill in the options. 8. And then each time I'm just going to go C underscore. I'm going to look at the list and I'm going to go, let's see, what color do I want? Blue. That's a good one. Let's see. C underscore. Oh, fuchsia is my pink, not magenta. C underscore green. Fuchsia is but like the same as magenta or pink. I don't know why fuchsia. Lime is like a lighter green. You can do any 8 colors you want. If you want to follow along exactly with what I'm doing, then just do my colors. Orange. C underscore. Let's see. Red. C underscore. White. And then I'm going to do a C underscore yellow. Okay. So, I'll kind of give you some time to pick out your own colors if you want. While I do that, I'm going to talk about the choose block. So the choose block, like the random number block, allows you to randomize. The difference is it's choosing from this specific group of things. Okay? So when I want to choose from a group of things, I use choose. When I want to choose just a random number, if I'm doing like a program where I need a dice roll or a die roll, I can use random number to do that. Okay? Okay. So the fact of the matter is these are just values in the computer, right? They're in the program. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a target variable called color. Okay? Now when you see this pop up and you notice that it says variable in purple and it says color, that means you're okay to use it because you're creating this variable. So the variable actually doesn't exist, but I'm only going to use it to change the color of the brick, so I'm going to click temp. Because that's all I want to do is I want to get it and then I want to change the color of the brick. So here we go. To change the color of the brick, I need to scroll up to where there we are. So we have all these options, right? This one here, it says set instance color. This is the one I'm going to use to change the color. So I'm going to click and drag that one into here. Now you notice the color has a $sign and a bunch of F's. Okay? That's because color is typically given as what we call 8 or I'm sorry. This is 64-bit color. Is that right? No, 32-bit color. So 32-bit color means that there are 8 values that I can set to some hexadecimal value. Instead, I'm just going to use my color variable. And I'm going to deselect true. Because the color was chosen here. The only other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some of the bricks into the room. and just see that they change color. So use my Alt, add some bricks. It doesn't even matter where they're at right now because I just want to see that they change color. Okay. I deselected the check for true, for set alpha, so it's false. See, and then I see a different color. And if I change this, if I do it again, I should see a different random color arrangement because I've used randomize. Okay, we'll better set this on Monday. So we're done with this for now, though.